haven't had a chance to do a lot of preparations. But the Lord knew that. The Lord foreknew that, and we're just going to believe in faith that he's got some things to say. And it's funny because this whole message is going to be about faith. So this is an exercise in trust right now. Okay, Bible trivia time. What's the shortest verse in the scriptures?
Jesus wept.
Very good. I think just about everybody got that one right. John chapter 11, verse 35. The way that I've traditionally heard this interpreted is that Jesus was sad because his friend died. That makes sense. I mean, we're all sad when that happens. But when you start to look at it a little bit closer, that interpretation gets kind of hazy, in my opinion. There's some other interpretations of this as well. Some people say he was weeping because he was moved by how much distress everybody around him was in. He was sad because they were sad. You know, it's a possibility too. But it's awfully odd how this unfolded, isn't it? Because Yeshua was told his friend was very sick. And he said, I'm not going. He said that God was going to get glory out of this situation. That's why he was going to wait. And I'm sure people were scratching their heads at that point. What are you talking about? God's going to get glory if you go heal him, dude. Come on. Let's get moving. No, I'm going to wait. So he did. And then I'm just going to read this portion here so that we know exactly how it unfolded. Chapter 11, verse 17. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to him, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet he shall live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, The teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but he was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved. Now I want you to remember that word, earmark that, because it's a translation thing. He was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews said, See how he loved him? But some of them said, Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? Well, you know the rest of the story. He told him to come on out. And he did. Because the power of God overcomes all. But here's the thing I want you to zero in on with me in this passage. Well, 2 things really. He got 2 different responses from the 2 women, Martha and Mary. Martha said, they both said a very similar thing. Hey, if you'd been here, maybe things would have gone differently. But then one of them said something else. Martha said, I know that whatever you ask from God, he'll give you. Whatever you ask. You see, she believed that there was still a possibility that something cool could happen here, something good could happen. And Yeshua's response to her was, yeah, that's going to happen. But when Mary came up, she fell down weeping, and she laid the accusation at his feet, if you'd been here, but she didn't go beyond that. She stopped there. And what did Jesus then, how did he then respond? Because up to this point, he has not shown any kind of strong emotion. The only thing he said is, I'm going to go when I go because God's going to get glory from it. But he hasn't shown any distress. He wasn't even upset, visibly upset, when they told him that his friend was sick. In fact, he said, didn't he say he's going to die? If I look back at earlier in chapter 11, yeah, he says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I will go awaken him. He's not upset at all. I'll go awaken him. No worries. So Mary says, why weren't you here? And then when he sees her weeping and saying that, and the Jews with her with the same mindset, it makes it clear, it mentions the rest of the people being like Mary. He was deeply moved. Now the word moved here in the Greek, now this is a terrible translation, and unfortunately, no translation ever gets everything right. And for the most part, I really like the ESV, which is what I'm reading from. But in this instance, I think it's an awful translation. But they do make a little mark, an asterisk next to it. And at the bottom, they give an alternative, or was indignant. Moved or was indignant. Well, which is it? Because those are very different things. The word in Greek is, I'm going to slaughter this because I don't speak Greek. Embromumenos.
Whoa.
Okay. It's a conjugation of ibrimamaomai. Y'all remember that? There's going to be a test later. That word has as its root the connotation of thundering. Thundering. So when you're moved in mourning, are you thundering inside? Is that usually what's happening? I don't think so. It also says in the same verse that Yeshua was disturbed. But in here, in ESV, it says troubled. The Greek word there is etaraxin. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that wrong too, but disturbed is a pretty good translation for that word. So what it actually says, if you want to translate it literally, is that Yeshua, upon seeing Mary and the other Jews and their state, Yeshua thundered in his spirit, or in the spirit, or to the spirit. It's a little bit hazy as to what the preposition there should be, but he was thundering inside and became greatly disturbed in himself as a result of that. I want to flip over real quick to Mark 14:4. Just one verse, because it's the same word that's used, the same word I can't pronounce, Ibrimuminus, is used in Mark 14. And in verse 4 it says, there were some who said to themselves indignantly, why was the ointment wasted like that? For this ointment could have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor. So in this instance, a woman of ill repute she was feeling her sinfulness and her need, and she was coming to Yeshua because she knew that he was a man of God who could help, and she was pouring a very expensive ointment on his feet, and it's a beautiful scene. But people were upset because she was wasting this very expensive ointment, or at least they thought it was being wasted. And Yeshua rebukes them for this and talks about her great love. But the people were indignant in this case, not Yeshua. But it's the same word. They were murmuring. They were talking amongst themselves because they didn't like it. Okay? Again, the connotation of being disturbed or the thundering. So there's one other time before I kind of answer what I think is going on in this passage. The one other time that Yeshua wept was shortly after this. In fact, in the book of, I think it's in the book of John, it goes from, no, it's not this one. Maybe this is right. The next chapter has him entering into Jerusalem. So this triumphal entry passage is the only other one in the Gospels where we see Yeshua weep, other than right before his death, weeping in the garden. I'm not even sure if he uses the word weep. I didn't look that up, but certainly he was very distraught then. But we're actually told he wept after entering into Jerusalem, which is very strange because they call it a triumphal entry, and the people were very excited, and they were asking him to come in. They were expecting good things to happen as a result of this. And he rode a donkey in to a lot of fanfare. So why would he have then wept? Let me turn to Luke 19 and read about it. Would that you, even you, had known on this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. For the days will come upon you when your enemies will set up a barricade around you and surround you and hem you in on every side and tear you down to the ground, you and your children within you. And they will not leave one stone upon another in you, because you did not know the time of your visitation. So he wept over the city because the people of Jerusalem did not know that they were being visited by the Son of God. They should have known. They should have known. There was plenty of prophecy. In fact, Daniel lays out an actual timeline of when the anointed one would show up and be cut off. It's pretty clear from that. And the book of Daniel says that he figured it out from stuff in Jeremiah. So some of the timeline as to when the Jews would be returning from captivity and all of that. So these things were there. And if they had cared to look carefully enough and been, I guess, honest enough with themselves, they would have understood that they were living in the time when the Messiah would be appearing. But they didn't. And he weeps over this because he knows that the end result is going to be great destruction for the Jews, and specifically the leveling of Jerusalem and the abandonment of the city until recent history. It is a thing to weep over, certainly. I can understand why he did. But what was the cause of that? It was the lack of trust. It was a lack of believing that God was doing what he promised to do. Mm-hmm. It was just a lack of belief, which means a lack of trust. That's why Jerusalem was going to get destroyed. It didn't have to be destroyed. It was going to be destroyed because of their unbelief, because of their rejection of the one that God had sent. All right, let's contrast that with those actually two things we looked at, with a time when Yeshua was pleased by someone's belief, by their faith. Luke chapter 7, verses 6 through 9. And Jesus went with them. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. And to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him. And turning to the crowd that followed him, said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. Yeshua commended this man. He said, this is great faith. Because, well, why? Why? What was the reason? Somebody just give me a suggestion. Why did Yeshua think that this was so great?
Command.
Okay. He wasn't a Jew. Okay.
They believed.
He already accepted it would be done.
He already accepted it, believed. He understood command structure. Okay. Yeah. So this man, who wasn't even one of God's people, part of the Israelite people, he believed that what he asked would be done. But not only did he believe that it would be done by Yeshua coming and doing it himself, he actually understood something about the supernatural realm that even a lot of the Jews weren't seeming to grasp. He realized this man is a leader of spiritual forces. He has great clout in the spirit. So he doesn't even have to go do it himself. He's got spirits that will do it for him. That's exactly right. Yeshua didn't have to be there. It's, okay, God, send your power, send an angel. And it was done.
Thank you.
But it takes great trust to believe that could happen. We have an example I'm remembering right now in the Old Testament of someone who was told, another Gentile, who was told by the prophet in Israel in his day to go cleanse himself in a river. He was to dip himself 7 times because he was a leper. He wanted to be clean. And he got really upset. It's like, what? I thought this guy was going to do something to me, Pray over me, lay hands, do some sort of, I don't know, dance, whatever. I don't know what he was thinking. But evidently it wasn't go dip in the river 7 times. He's upset because it's not even that clean of a river. So why would he tell me to do that? He didn't have any trust at that moment. And guess what? He wasn't going to get cleansed. If he had not acted in trust, he would have remained a leper the rest of his life. And the only thing that saved him from that is his servant had trust. And his servant said, why don't you just go do it anyway? So he did, and he got cleansed. You see, it's not about the river. It's not about the water. It's not about the place that you are. It's not about what clothes you're wearing, what car you're driving, how much you have in your bank account. It's nothing to do with your exterior circumstances. It has everything to do with trust. Is God going to do what he says he's going to do? And can he do anything? Yes? Absolutely. So, the centurion was a man of great faith, and Yeshua loved that. But think about all of the times in the Gospels, and I'm not going to sit here and list them for you, but I'm sure that we could just flip to any given page of the Gospels and probably find a reference to faith being talked about. Because Yeshua drove it home over and over and over again. It was a huge part of his teaching. And he would oftentimes chastise people for not having it. Oh, ye of little faith. Come on. When are you finally going to get it? He's saying that through his whole ministry. Oh, you of little faith. And even in moments, not just about the miracles of healing, but even in moments of danger, like when the disciples were on a boat in a storm, great storm, Yeshua is sleeping. He's not bothered. And they wake him up. You gotta do something. You're gonna die. And Yeshua's like, come on, guys. Where's your faith? Like, really? You think he's gonna let us die? We're his disciples and his kids. Like, I'm his son. Nothing's gonna happen here. And they were still worried. And many times, when he said really great things about people, it was because they believed. They just believed. And even at the end of his ministry, or towards the very end, when he cursed the fig tree, and it came back later on after he cursed it, and it was all withered up, and the disciples exclaimed, wow, look at that! You cursed the thing, and it withered! And he's like, duh. You know what he says? Have faith in God. That's it. He wasn't like, well, this is how I did it, blah, 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 blah. No, it's like, just trust God. Yeah, when there's a declaration that's made from a place of godliness, it'll happen. If you believe. Trust is really the root of godly character. Let your root be good, and the fruit will follow. Let your root be right, and your fruit will soon abound. And this is not a New Testament thing. So let's go back to Proverbs, Isaiah, and Psalms. You'll find the word trust all over the Psalms. Next time you're in there, just keep an eye out for it. It shows up a lot. But let's go to Proverbs 3:5 first. I want to read that. You don't have to flip to all these things, but I'm going to quickly turn to them. Proverbs 3, verse 5 says, "Trust in Yahweh with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths." It's a beautiful proverb. The whole thing is good. Trying to memorize it, but that one part there is so important. It's not just believing in Yahweh a little bit. It's not just, whenever everything else fails and all is lost, then I'll resort to Yahweh. That's not the point. The point is to start there. We need to start our whole day, every day, with putting our full trust in him, all of our heart, and not relying at all on how we understand things. That's really hard. Guys, I mean, I'm sure everybody in here could tell me a story about, times when they finally decided they weren't going to look through earthly eyes. They weren't going to, they were going to take off the glasses of their normal thinking and their normal upbringing and trust in God and how awesome things happen. Because, when we just see the world in the way that we've been raised to look at it, then it's almost impossible to believe that something else can be real, something else can happen, because I'm a scientific-minded guy. We test the universe and we see certain results, and we test it again and we get the same results, and after doing that a number of times, we just decide, okay, this is the way it is. This is reality. And that's totally normal. That's how God made it, right? We observe, we test, and not even, you don't even have to be a scientist to do that. It's just the normal way of things. As we grow, we try things, see if they work, and that ingrains itself in us so that we have a certain understanding of the world and the rules of this life, and we just live in those. But God wants us to believe that he doesn't have to worry about the rules. We do because we're under them. We're living in this world. But he's not constrained by that. And so when he declares through his prophets things about who he is and what he's going to do that don't conform to what we know about the world from our experience, then we have a choice. We can either keep believing what we're seeing and experiencing around us right now, or we can believe that the one who made it all is actually going to do other things whenever he feels like it. And if we just ask him, he will. He's awesome. He's really awesome.
Yes, he is.
If we weren't stuck in a system with rules that are predictable, then the miracles wouldn't be outstanding. Right? You have to have something that's normal in order for the abnormal to be so weird. So it makes perfect sense that we're in this predictable scenario. And when people get cancer or break their leg, or when a storm is shaking our boat and threatening to overturn it, in those circumstances, we know there's danger. Things look bad because they are bad. That's the system. But God is just using that as an opportunity to get us to come to him and rely on him as a good Abba to take us out of those things. The word says that a righteous man undergoes many trials and falls many times, but the Lord rescues him out of them all. It doesn't say he rescues him before he gets into any of that. No, you're going to go through many trials, which means you're in the middle of it, you're feeling the pain, you're under the pressure. He rescues us out of them all.
Amen.
Out of the midst. He plucks us out.